In a world where TikTok videos, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts seem to be degrading our attention spans as a species, there is one country that rejects this trend and has decided to build, make, and do everything way longer than necessary. Well, or at least longer than what we do in the US. Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie, and along with my wife Aubrey, we are two Americans currently living in Germany and sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. The famous American author and comedian Mark Twain once said, "Some German words are so long that they have a perspective." As he described the words, Germans love to build to contain dozens and dozens of letters. But in the nearly 3 years that we have lived in Germany, there are other things that we have observed Germans do or make a lot longer than we had ever experienced in the US, from toilet paper to TV shows. What else do Germans draw out a lot longer than Americans? Well, that is exactly what we are going to talk about today in our video, Live Long and Prosper. But how long does this go on for? First, I have to say that we are originally from a state in the southern US called Oklahoma and now live in the southwestern German state of Rheinland-Pfalz. And that both of these places have their own unique subcultures that may not be representative of the two countries as a whole. Therefore, let me know your individual experiences with these things in the comments below and where you are from. And let's just remember, just because one place does something one way and another place does something another way doesn't always mean there are rights and wrongs. Maybe just simply different ways of doing things. The first time that I ever came to Germany was in 2014 when I was a junior in college and I took part in a study abroad program. I made an interesting observation immediately upon arrival to my hotel, which I took as a testament to the modern marvel that German engineering is, and it was that German toilet paper squares, or really, I should say rectangles, are longer than American toilet paper squares. I know. I was shocked as well, but I'm also not alone in this discovery, as this past Christmas when we had family come visit, our sister-in-law also immediately noticed this lengthier ply and let us know her shock from the size as well. For those of you interested, I did do my very scientific research and texted my brother in the US to measure a square for me, while I measured the dimensions of the German TP here at home and found this to be the comparison. So why is German toilet paper squares longer than American? Well, my question to you is, how many squares do you rip off at a time? My assumption, based on years of personal research, is that Americans are probably more likely to rip off at least 2 squares at a time, whereas Germans may tear off fewer because of the higher paper to square ratio. So perhaps the slightly longer rectangle that is not quite as long as 2 American squares discourages tearing off more than 1 at a time, and over time, this saves paper? Let me know what you think. Like Mark Twain noted, one thing that Germans are world famous for is inventing insanely long words. People often joke about words like this 80-letter word, or Germany's word of the year from 1999 coming in at 63 letters. But these aren't actually words that you would hear today in everyday language, really, but partly only because this word was a law that was repealed in 2013. In fact, Germans even find these types of words a little bit silly and have even used this as a marketing gimmick at times by giving some things ridiculously long names just to grab your attention, like, how often do you find yourself cooking a nice boiled egg but can't actually eat it? You try cracking it, rolling it, smashing it to get that delicious soft inside, but every time it just ends up being a crumble mess of shell and egg. What a mess. Well, not anymore, thanks to the German engineering and the Eierschalensollbruchstellenverursacher. However, Guinness World Record listed the longest German word actually used in daily language as Rechtsschutzversicherungsgesellschaften at only 39 letters. To an outsider who doesn't speak German, these words just look absurd or comical, puzzle, and they don't understand how a language could be so creative at slapping letters together to name something. Well, here is the trick I have learned since learning German. This one word is actually a lot of smaller words just smushed together to describe one thing. And this isn't something English speakers should find too unusual, considering we do the same thing to a degree. For example, football, grandparent, fireman, anti-disestablishmentarianism. Only German allows for much longer and more complicated combinations. But essentially, if English had the same rules as German, this old law, which is translated like this, would simply be written like this. By the way, can any of you tell me what the longest word in English is? Well, it actually is a lot longer than a lot of long German words as well, and I'll spell it out for you right along here, but see if you can guess it before it's done spelling. And while I do that, let me tell you how you could possibly have learned this word already yourself with the sponsor of today's video, Cambly. Cambly is an English learning platform where you get one-on-one lessons with native English speakers. 100% of Cambly's tutors are native English speakers from the US, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, etc. You can simply hop on Cambly's website or app anywhere you have internet access and comfortably speak with any of their qualified tutors at any time. And I literally mean anytime, because although you can sign up for lessons in advance, you don't have to and can always just jump on and see who is available at that moment to work with you. When I am out and about speaking German, I have realized how big the differences actually are in how Germans actually speak in their daily lives versus what I was taught in a class or from a book. English, of course, is the same way, and what I love about Cambly is that you will be able to actually receive feedback in real time from native speakers who can help you sound more natural when you speak. I will leave a link to Cambly in the description below for you to check them out, and if you use our promo code PassportCambly, Cambly will give you a free 15-minute trial lesson so you can try it out and see how great it is yourself. By the way, did you already know this word? It's a lung disease caused by inhaling very fine ash and sand dust, but you can just call it P45. We once visited some friends in Berlin and watched The Voice of Germany with them. It felt like a single episode was going on and on and on, not because we weren't enjoying it, but because it literally was going on forever. In fact, if you look at the TV schedule for Sat.1, you will see this single episode lasted for 2.5 hours. In the US, some shows do have 2-hour finales or specials, but we would say this seems to be fairly rare or just for special occasions. If we look at the US schedule for the American version of the same show, The Voice, we do see this rarity that aired, but the other airing is the normal 1-hour duration, and that is typically as long as a show will get in the US. Our friends we were watching this show with explained this is pretty normal in Germany, and since then, we have noticed it more with even other shows like a single Das große Backen episode, a spin-off of the Great British Baking Show, aired for 2.5 hours weekly as well. We have also seemed to notice that the show structures are the exact same as the US versions, but the German versions just take much more time getting through all the parts of the show, whereas the American versions seem to show the highlights and move on to the main points. And by the way, if you thought a 2.5-hour episode of a show was long, some of our German viewers brought to our attention shows like Schlag den Raab, which was famous for sometimes having shows lasting 4 to 6 hours, or other shows like Wetten das, in which American actor Tom Hanks was once a guest and was so confused about why it went on so long that he was later quoted in a radio interview talking about this experience, saying, for almost 3 hours he wished that someone would take him off the air. And if someone in the US made a TV show that lasted 4 hours, anyone responsible would be fired the next day. When Aubrey and I started our YouTube channel, we had just both left our jobs in the US and decided to travel full-time for a year. For many Americans we talked to when we told them we were going to travel for a year, they asked how we could do that, and we told them about how we had sold almost everything we owned, and this seemed to make it clear for them. In contrast, we visited my host family in Germany during that year while we were traveling, and when we told them that we sold everything to travel, they asked, wait, Why did you sell everything? You were only traveling for a year? And this is one of many experiences we have had learning about how much longer Germans holiday than Americans and the difference in perspectives of taking time off that we have. Now, not all Germans spend a year traveling, and to many Germans that would be a very long time as well, but according to Statista, before the pandemic in 2019, when travel was much more normal, Germans on average would spend 12.3 days on vacations. But compared to the US, which the Washington Post called the US not a great vacation nation, this is a lot of time to spend on vacation. So yes, the US government doesn't guarantee any time off for workers, and a lot of foreigners assume, therefore, that Americans don't get time off. However, 90% of full-time workers do get paid time off from their employers. Normally, workers will start with about 10 days of vacation a year and earn more over time, so the national average in 2018 was 23.9 days of personal time off. And I already know Germans are shocked at the fact that we aren't guaranteed time off, and are further shocked at even if we do get some, how little time off we get. But what I'm about to tell you is even more shocking. Many Americans don't use the time off they are given in a year. In fact, 55% of American workers did not use all their allotted time off in 2018. After Aubrey and I got married, we planned a 2-week vacation to the UK, and I stressed over if I was even allowed to take off 2 weeks straight and to use up my entire year's worth of time off, I might add. I asked many of my coworkers before asking my boss if this was something that they had even seen others allowed to do, and many were left scratching their heads. In fact, 54% of US workers reported feeling guilty about taking vacation time. I also just recently saw a friend post on Facebook they were looking for a dog sitter while they go for a few weeks this summer on their honeymoon. One comment on the post said, "A few-week honeymoon?" And the friend responded, "Well, we've been waiting for over 2 years." On the flip side, we have German friends who will take 3-week vacations 1 to 2 times a year. Or for example, we have some friends who will be taking their first trip to the US and will spend 2.5 weeks there. To Germans, this is normal. Maybe you can't feel it, but I can feel myself getting all worked up as I think back to how little time off we get in the US and how much longer of vacations Germans take with their ample time off, so I should probably just stop here. And on that note, the final thing Germans do longer than Americans: live. To see who made it this far into the video, the random question of the week is, what is your least favorite vegetable to eat? Thanks so much for watching, guys. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and we will see you in our next video. For example, and sharing all of our experiences living. What? How'd I mess that up? A single Das große Backen episode is a spin-off of the German Great British Baking Show, airing for 2.5 hours. They were looking for a dog sitter while they would go, they were,